Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. And this is the introduction about the 10th lecture on the firearm and its mechanics. And continuing with the important definitions which we discussed in the previous 9th lecture. Now in this lecture, we will discuss more important aspects or the definitions which are important for us to understand. Like the rat hole or the cookie cutter phenomena, which specifically occurs in the smoothbore weapons, and what are the mechanics of rat hole phenomena and how it helps us in determination of the distance of fire. Then we will discuss the shored exit wounds. Shored exit wounds are when the person is lying on the floor or standing against the wall, the bullet at the exit hole will recoil back and make an sure margin. So we'll discuss how it happens. Then we'll discuss the very important phenomena, a bevelling phenomena. Bevelling phenomena is shown on the bones, especially which have two tables, like the skull bone, the ribs, and the sternum. And they help us in determining the direction of fire. Bevelling in, bevelling out. So we'll discuss those mechanics. Then we'll also discuss the ricocheting or the billiard ball phenomena. This is the change in the direction of the flight of the bullet, which may be outside the body or inside the body. So we'll discuss those mechanics. Then what are the tandem bullets? Dum-dum bullets. So we'll discuss what type of bullets they are. Then an important rule, which is Peps rule. Peps rule help us in determining that if there were two bullets fired on the skull, which was the first bullet and which was the second bullet. So we'll discuss those mechanics in this lecture. Then we'll discuss smoke blackening, blackening caused by smoke. Then we'll discuss the powder tattooing, peppering, and what are its medical legal significance. Then sometimes if at the crime scene the bullets and the weapon are recovered, the identity of the rifled weapon from that bullets which are recovered, they can be done. So we will discuss those factors which help us in identification of the rifled weapon. Okay, take care. Hello everyone, and now I'm going to start the 10th lecture. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So continuing with the important definitions which are related with the firearms and its mechanics, we'll discuss more important definitions in this lecture. And the learning objective of this video lecture will be that by the end of this video lecture, the student and the young doctors will be familiar with more important definitions related with firearms and its mechanics. We will discuss in this lecture the rat hole or the cookie cutter phenomena. This is a specific phenomena which is shown by the smoothbore weapons in which the pellets are fired. Then we will discuss the shored exit wound and bevelling phenomena. Then the ricocheting or the billiard ball phenomena and its effects on the wound ballistics. And what are tandem bullets? What are dum-dum bullets? And we will discuss the Papp'S rule and its medical legal significance. This is important when the two bullets are fired on the head, and how to determine which was the first bullet which was fired. Then we will discuss the smoke blackening, the powder tattooing or the peppering, and how we identify a rifled weapon from its a bullet which is recovered from the crime scene. So the first, the rat hole phenomenon. Beyond 3 feet, which is usually called as arm's length, that after the arm's length usually, but it will further depend upon the choking, because the choking will further increase the compactness of the discharge after travel. So the weapon, if it is not choked or less choked, beyond 3 feet, the gun pellets, they starts dispersing or spreading or fanning out. And at this distance, when they just start dispersing and entering into the victim's body, they show a pattern of rat hole. That is the margin of the wound. They are nibbled by the pellets which are dispersing and appears as the rats have nibbled the edge of the entry wound. That is called rat hole phenomena, shown by the dispersion of the pellets. It appears as a large central defect, and the margins are crenated or nibbled as eaten up by rats. Few independent perforation by the dispersed pellets may be seen around the main hole. And this is also known as cookie cutter phenomena, as certain cookies are crenated at the margins and they appear as cookie cutter. So cookie cutter phenomena is also called the rat hole phenomena. So this is how it appears. You can see the margin of the entry wound, they are crenated, and few are dispersed and shown independent entry points. Now the showed exit wound. This happens when the victim is lying on the floor or standing firmly against the wall, brick wall. Then the body of the victim is well supported at the exit site, and this will now cause showed exit wound. And because of this support of the hard surface, the bullet at the exit point will not only be D-shaped by striking the hard surface, but after striking it will recoil back and try to enter back into the victim's body. And this entry and exit will keep on, that to and fro movement will keep on for some time, and this will cause the margin or the edge to be showed. And this is how it appears. This is not the collar of abrasion. The collar of abrasion is because of the indenting and rubbing by the spinning bullet at the entry hole. But this is at the exit hole, where the bullet, after striking the hard surface, become D-shaped, is recoiled back and showed the margin. So that's why it is called as showed exit wound. Now the bevelling phenomena. This is an also important phenomena which is shown by the bullets when they are fired on the bones which is having two tables. When the bullet passes through the bones having two tables like skull and sternum, then the phenomena of bevelling is seen. It helps us in determining the direction of fire and entry and exit holes. Bevelling or cratering of skull bone. Bevelling or cratering of skull bone The skull bone is, as we know, is a flat bone made up of two diploe or two layers, one outer and one inner. The table which is struck first by the projectile is supported by the inside layer, which is the inner table. So the outer table will be having comparatively small, circular and clean cut margin hole. And the table which is second to struck has no support beneath. So it will be having a bigger irregular hole and beveled margins. So in it, the bevelling will be inwards, that the inner margins, they will be beveled in. There will be chipping of the margin of the hole, and that is called as bevelling in. The outer table will be having clean cut circular hole, whereas the inner table will be showing bevelling inward. And when the same bullet, when it strikes to the opposite skull wall, when it is trying to exit out, now it first will encounter the inner table. Now the inner table is being supported by the outer table. So it will now first strike the inner table, and the inner table will be now having a clean cut hole. And the outer table, which is now not supported, will be showing bevelling outward. The margins will be beveled out. They will be chipped off in an outward direction. So this is called as bevelling outward. So the medical legal importance, it gives the direction of fire. We can identify which is the entry and which is the exit hole. You can see the bullet is entering. At this point, the outer table is clean cut and inner table, the margins are chipped off. They are beveled in. And this diagram showing the entry and exit hole. On the left side, there is entry wound. You can see the outer table, which is clean cut, whereas the inner table, the margins are chipped off, is bevelling inward. And on the right side at the exit wound, now the inner table is showing the clean cut hole, and the outer table, the margins will be chipped off. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the bevelling in and bevelling out of the firearm wound on the skull. This is a photograph, and the margins are beveled, and there is also blackening in the track. This is view from outside. On the left side, inward bevelling at the skull. The outer table is clean cut, whereas on the right side, same view, there is outward bevelling at the exit hole. At the entry side, this is view from the outside. At the entry side, you can see the circular clean cut margins, where at the exit point, you can see the beveled margin. So on the left is bevelling inward, on right is bevelling outward. This is a view from the outer holes. And similarly, when we see from the inside, the lower one, that is so this upper one, this is the exit hole, where there was bevelling outward. So now the upper one is showing the inner table, which is clean cut at the bevelling outward. And the lower one, which was showing in the previous photograph, the bevelling inward, the clean cut margin, now the margins are chipped off. This is bevelling inward from the inner view. The previous photograph was showing view from outside, both the entry and the exit. This is view from the inside at the entry and the exit side. This is side by side both view. On the left side, when we look from outside, there is beveling inward and clean cut hole. And similar view on the right side, when we look from same hole from inside, there is beveling inward and the margins have been chipped off. And now when we see at the exit hole in outer view, the margins are beveled out. And similar hole when we look from inside, that is clean cut. So the two photographs on the left and right, they are distincting the beveling inward and beveling outward phenomena. Now the ricocheting or the billiard ball phenomena, that means the changing the pathway of the bullet. The ricocheting is a phenomena in which the bullet is deflected or deviated from its path by striking an intermediary object. And this deviation may be either outside the body, that is called external ricocheting, or inside the body, which is called internal ricocheting. The external ricocheting occurs when the bullet deviates from its course when it strikes another object. And when it strikes another object outside the body, it ricochets, changes the direction. So then it may either lose its velocity and may only abrade the body surface when it rubs and passes away. This is by reduction in velocity. Or it may produce a gutter shape wound. It is not having much energy to enter, but simply a gutter shape wound will be seen. The entrance wound may produce a bizarre shape due to deformed bullet. The bullet may become deformed by striking at the other intermediary object, and it may produce an irregular shape wound. So these are the medical legal importance significance, how the appearance of wound can vary by external ricocheting. This is a simple abrasion, the bullet rubbing and passing away. And this is another photograph, and this is a gutter-shaped wound, bullet passing by. Then internal ricocheting, when the bullet enters into the body and strikes a hard object like bone, and it deviates its path. That is called as internal ricocheting. Extensive laceration will be found by ricocheting within the body. And usually the ricocheting is when it strikes the bone within the body. Now the tandem bullets. The bullets remains in the barrel due to some defect. That is, the ammunition is defective. And when the firing pin strikes the primer cap, because of its defectiveness, it does not exit out. It remains lodged within the barrel. That it enters into the barrel, that exits the chamber, enters into the barrel but does not exit through the muzzle end. It remains lodged within the barrel. And when the second bullet is fired, one after the other, now this becomes a pair of bullets. There are two bullets, one after the each, that the nose of the previous second bullet will be in contact with the base of the first bullet. So they are called tandem bullets, that the two bullets are the pair of bullets traveling together. So they will exit in a pair manner. So this phenomena is observed when the bullet gets lodged inside the barrel and the second bullet is following it. The front bullet gets the kick at its base from the bullet which is following it. These bullets move together inside the barrel and emerge as a pair from the muzzle end in tandem. So that's why they are called tandem bullets. They tend to follow the same trajectory only for a short distance because both together form an unstable projectile, and the bullets thereafter are separated and may follow different trajectories. And if bullet strikes before separation, they form the single entry wound. That is, if they are traveling together and enters as a pair, they can make single entry wound, or if they are separated, they can make two separate entry holes. Now the dum-dum bullets. A dum-dum bullet is the name for several types of bullets which expand during the travel. That the ammunition of the firearms has been made such that the tip or the nose of the bullet is hollowed, and this hollow nose during the flight will offer resistance in the air, and it will expand open like a flower. So that is called as dum-dum bullet, expanding bullets. The bullet has got an indentation or notch across its top, that is the hollow nose. And due to this indentation and hollowness, the bullets gets deformed and fragmented upon impact, or it will expand in a flower-shaped manner during the flight in the air. And with this effect, all the energy get dissipated to the body and leaving no exit wound. That means when it strikes to the body, it is fragmented, multiple entry holes and extensive laceration, and they will not exit and will do the enormous damage. They are banned. These bullets are banned. They are not allowed in routine ammunition to be delivered. Now the Papp's rule. According to this rule, the fissured fracture produced on the skull by the first striking bullet are never crossed by the fractures produced by the second striking bullet. So this means you can identify if there are two bullets fired on the skull, you can find out which was the first bullet which was fired and which was the second bullet, as the first bullet will cause fissured fractures and the second bullet will cause also the fractures, but the fracture lines of the second bullet will not cross over the fracture lines which has been produced by the first bullet. This is bullet number 1, striking and producing fractures. Now the second bullet strikes and it is also producing fracture, and you can see on the left side these fracture will not cross over the lines or the fracture lines produced by the first bullet. So we can identify that the left one is the first bullet and the right one is the second bullet, because in some time in courts there are two assailants and both fired at the skull. So it will be particular to know whose bullet was fired first, whose bullet struck first that caused death. So the second bullet which was fired later on, its fracture lines will not cross over the first bullet line. So the victim was already dead by the first bullet, not by the second bullet. So the gravity of the sentence or the punishment on the second bullet assailant will be less than the first bullet. So that's how this rule is important for us to understand. Now the smoke blackening effect. When there is completely burnt gunpowder, these fine particles will soil the surface at the anti site, and this is called smoke blackening. And this is usually in close range. At contact or near contact, the carbon get deposited as minute particles around the clothing or the skin around the entry wound. This is the smoke which is traveling with the bullet. And smoke marks may indicate the range and the direction of fire, because beyond 1 yard, that is arm's length, it is usually absent. But again, it will depend upon the uh, weapon, how fancy and how it has been designed. The smoke can easily be washed. When you wash the smoke will wash, but the tattoo marks or the tattoo hemorrhages will not washed away, because tattoos are produced by the embedment of the gunpowder particle into the skin. They will not wash away. This is the picture showing before washing. There is blackening around the anti-hole. When you wash it away, the blackening has been washed, and this is how the anti-hole now appears. Now the tattooing, the powder tattooing or peppering or stippling. The powder tattooing means the deposition of unburnt, burnt or partially burnt coarse gunpowder particles into the skin. And it is produced by these coarse particles which are traveling along with the bullet. They pierce into the superficial skin layers and cause punctate abrasion, punctate or small hemorrhages of the small blood vessels, and that is called as tattoo marks. This is how it appears. It is present around the anti-wound, and these marks resemble peppering and are due to the unburnt or partially burnt gunpowder particles. They are more common with black gunpowder, because the smokeless gunpowder, they do not have the heavy particles to travel, so they are usually made by the black gunpowder. And beyond 2 yards, the tattooing will be absent. When blackening is there, tattooing is always there. It leaves small punctate hemorrhages on the skin. The medical legal significance of gunpowder is that it helps to determine the direction of fire. If the bullet is struck at right angle perpendicular to the target, there will be symmetrical distribution of stippling all around. And it helps to determine if it is oblique, the stippling will be oblique. You can see the direction of fire. On the side of the arrow, there is less. On the other side, there are more tattoo marks. And this also will show that the fire has been from the left side of the victim. Now, the identity of rifled weapon from the marks on the bullet. This is important. Sometimes the bullet or the weapon is recovered from the crime scene. So the identity of rifled weapon from the marks on the bullet can be made, because the lands on the rifling, they make an impression on the lead bullet. When the bullet is traveling through the rifled weapon, the lands which are raised portion, they engrave an impression on the lead bullet. And if you find a weapon and the bullets on the crime scene, you can test fire, and this bullet of test fire can be compared with the bullet which is recovered from the crime scene with the help of comparison microscope. And identical pattern of the marks will be seen on the test fire bullet and the bullet which is recovered from the crime scene. So these identical marks will help us in confirming the identity of the bullet. And each weapon has its unique identity. Even though the weapons has been made from the same factory, but the impression which is created by the marks, they are distinct, they are identity, like the fingerprints of the human being, they make the identity of the weapon. So they are characteristically an identity of that weapon, and that marks of the lands and groups which are engraved on the bullet helps in identity of a weapon. So these are the marks which has been engraved. These are different bullets. You can see the parallel lines, which are basically the lines of the lands and groups. There are some other definitions. Just mention the birdshot pellets. They are small size, number are 2 to 9. Then buckshot pellet larger than 9. Dust shot pellets, which are like the dust. And the blank ammunition is the only ammunition which is only having the powder and no projectile. Then the dum-dum bullet we have discussed. They either are non-jacketed or partially jacketed. They expand on the flight. They flatten, they disperse into a flower shape, and they dissipate much energy to the tissues. So the summary of lecture is that after this video lecture, the students will be familiar with more definitions and its mechanics. We have discussed in this lecture, and we understood what is rat hole phenomena, what is shored exit wound, what is bevelling phenomena and its significance. And we have now understood what is ricocheting phenomena, what are tandem bullets and the dum-dum bullets. Then we discussed the Papp'S rule and its medical legal significance, then smoke blackening, powder tattooing, and identity of rifle weapon. So now we are familiar with these terms. Thank you very much. So that's all for this lecture. Take care. Allah.